The room hums at a frequency you can't quite place. Somewhere between the buzz of the fluorescent tube above you and the static that still crawls inside your left ear. You tell yourself it's nothing, just the sound of bad wiring or maybe the wind pressing against the thin walls of the sheriff's office. But when the interrogator leans forward, you realize it's the same tone that lived in the woods that night, the one that began after the laughter stopped. He doesn't introduce himself. He doesn't need to. The badge on his chest has already done the work, gleaming faintly in the tired light. His notebook lies closed on the table, a pencil balanced perfectly across the spine like a seesaw waiting for movement. You know he's watching for rhythm when you breathe, when you blink, when the tremor in your fingers repeats. Outside, the Michigan wind drags the last orange leaves down the asphalt. You can hear them scrape across the parking lot, a dry whispering that sounds like children dragging pillowcases. You don't look at the window, you look at your hands. He begins with your name. You repeat it automatically. The sound feels wrong, as if the syllables have been stored somewhere damp and pulled out just for this moment. He nods once, not writing it down. You realize he's mirroring every slight movement you make. He copies with a half-second delay. It's not meant to comfort you. It's meant to open you up. You shift in the metal chair, the legs screeching faintly. He waits. The silence becomes a wall of pressure. You try to fill it with something harmless. You talk about the parade, the pumpkin lights, the smell of cider from the church booth. You mention how the two girls, them, had matching paper masks that covered half their faces. He doesn't interrupt. The pencil hasn't moved. The hum in your ear grows louder. It's as if the static feeds on every word. You tell him you walked home through the forest shortcut, that the others wanted to stop by the diner for cocoa, that you were tired. He tilts his head slightly, the same way you did moments earlier. You realize you're being looped, your own posture fed back to you until you forget who initiated what. You mention the sound of water beyond the trees, the hollow echo of something hitting the creek rocks. The interrogator finally writes a single word where you can't tell if it's a question or a note. You look down at your sleeve. A thin thread clings to the cuff, orange and glittery. You brush it away too quickly. His eyes catch the motion. He writes again, slower this time. The air smells like dust and faint coffee. Somewhere behind the wall, a heater kicks on, exhaling warmth that doesn't reach you. The static merges with the hum, two sounds wrestling for space inside your skull. You wonder if he hears it too. He asks about the laughter, how long it lasted, what direction it came from, whether it stopped all at once. You answer carefully. You say it faded like a song running out of batteries. You don't mention the moment the trees went still, when even the wind refused to move. His pen taps once on the table, a metronome marking the beat between your truths and your inventions. You realize you're contradicting yourself. You said you walked alone, but now you're describing voices. He doesn't call it out. He just nods, letting the silence draw the outline of the lie for you. The fluorescent light flickers. For a second, the room disappears and you're back under the birch canopy. Moonlight filters through fog, silvering the masks that hung from the girl's wrists. The static turns to whispering, syllables too soft to belong to anyone living. Do you still hear it? The interrogator asks. You blink. He's closer now, the pencil gone. The chair creaks again as you shift back. You open your mouth to deny it, but the hum answers first. A faint, electric breath between you both. You tell him no. You tell him the woods were silent. But your pulse is pounding in your ears, matching the rhythm of a sound that never really left. He leans back slowly, eyes steady, voice flat. Then tell me again. He says, where were you when the laughter stopped? You swallow. The static sharpens to a thin, constant tone. You close your eyes and see fog where the road should be. The leaves move in patterns you can't name. You think of the masks, the matching ones, and the way one had fallen halfway into the creek, paper sagging from the water. You start to answer, but the room shifts. The hum changes pitch, as if the forest has leaned closer to listen. You begin but stop. The interrogator waits, motionless. The heater sighs again. Outside, something metallic clatters in the wind. You realize you're cold. You realize the static isn't in the wiring. It's in you. The next session begins with a lamp instead of the overhead light. The shade is yellowed, throwing soft rings of warmth across the table. Deliberate, maybe, to make this look less like an interrogation and more like a conversation. Still, the chair is the same, the hum behind the walls unchanged. You notice the faint scent of wax. Not candle wax, pumpkin. Burnt, sweet, nostalgic in a way that makes your throat tighten. The interrogator opens his notebook for the first time. The pages are neat, nearly empty. He writes the date in slow, deliberate strokes. November 1st, 1969. You stare at it, wondering if the world outside still smells like rain and candy. He begins differently this time with a projection tactic. You said you saw them last at the corner of Birch and Maple. What do you think happened after that? You answer too quickly. You say they went home, that their street was closer, that they were fine. The words fall out rehearsed, brittle. He nods, jotting a single checkmark. You feel it land like a pin on a map. Your mind drifts back to the glow of that night. Jack-o'-lanterns flickered on every porch, faces carved with uneven grins. You remember the sound of candy wrappers and the giggle of paper masks rustling as the girls ran ahead. They had called your name twice, before disappearing into the fog that crept low over the lawns. You can still picture their costumes. Hand-cut ghosts, uneven eye holes, shoes shining from new polish. One had a red ribbon tied around her wrist so her parents could spot her easily. You joked that it made her look like she was tethered to the world. You hadn't realized how true that was until later. The interrogator asks you to describe the weather. You say foggy. He repeats it, foggy, his tone flat, looping the word like it might unlock something hidden inside. You look down at your hands and notice a faint line of dried mud beneath your fingernails. It wasn't there yesterday. You curl your fingers under the table. He leans forward, elbows resting exactly where yours are. Mirroring again. You glance up. He doesn't break eye contact. The heater rattles to life. A low, vibrating hum that blends with the sound of rain starting against the window. The whole room feels smaller, boxed in by sound. You tell him about the laughter that moved through the neighborhood, about the paper masks that glowed under porch lights. He asks how far behind you were. You pause. You say 20 steps, then 15. Then you correct yourself, 20 again. His pencil scratches softly. 20, he repeats, marking the number. And when you reached the corner? You hesitate. The fog was thick there, almost silver. You could see the girls' silhouettes, faint, smudged outlines, before the streetlight flickered and they were gone. You tell him that, but it sounds weaker out loud, like a story being practiced too many times. He tilts his head. Did you run after them? You shake your head. I didn't hear them anymore. But you saw movement? You nod. Maybe. He writes maybe. Your voice feels like it's not yours anymore. You talk about the way the fog moved, how it felt alive, wrapping around lampposts and driveways like a slow tide. The sound of the wind through the maple branches seemed to whisper, syllables forming and breaking apart. You mention that you turned back once, toward the last porch with a pumpkin still burning. Inside, a family laughed, unaware of the quiet swallowing the street. You wanted to knock on their door. You didn't. You told yourself you were just being dramatic. The interrogator notes something down, then closes the notebook again. You remember a lot of sensory detail, he says. Smells, lights, sounds. But not direction. You nod, unsure whether it's an accusation. He sits back, folding his arms. The gesture is casual but deliberate, a break in rapport. The silence this time isn't warm. It's procedural. The heater sighs once more. The pumpkin scent lingers. The paper masks, the ones you mentioned, seem sharper in your mind. White faces caught mid-laughter, turning away. You can almost hear them calling again. Faint, stretched thin by distance or memory. You said their names before, the interrogator says quietly. Say them again. You hesitate. You hadn't realized you had. Lydia, you whisper. And Beth. The words settle in the air, fragile and final. He studies you for a long time, then clicks his pen closed. The noise sounds like a latch on a door. Let's take a short break, he says. You nod, but don't move. Your fingers trace a shape on the table. A circle, then two eyes, then a jagged mouth. When you blink, it looks exactly like one of the jack-o'-lanterns from that night. Outside, thunder murmurs low across the fields. The window fogs from the inside, a thin layer of moisture slowly erasing your reflection. You stare at the blurred outline and realize you've been drawing the same pumpkin face for nearly a minute. The third session begins earlier than you expect. Morning, not evening. The light through the blinds slices across the table in gray bars. Feels wrong. Halloween stories shouldn't be told in daylight. The interrogator doesn't comment on your surprise. He just slides a tape recorder closer to you and presses play. A hiss, then a voice from the past. Severe weather advisory in effect for Wayne and Washtenaw counties. Fog expected to persist through the night of October 31. The announcer's tone is clinical, almost cheerful. You remember that voice, the same one that played from every kitchen radio that night, between commercials for chewing gum and car dealerships. The interrogator watches your face as you listen. You try not to react, but the sound pulls you under like a tide. You can see the living room again. Your father adjusting the antenna, your mother wrapping caramel apples, your jacket hanging by the door. The radio crackled through all of it, its static whispering behind the music. You'd thought it was comforting, that low hum filling the spaces where no one spoke. Now it feels like a warning you missed. He stops the tape. You told us the fog started around 8, he says. But this forecast aired at 7:15. You'd already left the house. You nod. It was early. We wanted to beat the crowd. He leans forward slightly. So you heard the warning. You hesitate. Everyone heard it. Yet you still took the forest route home. His tone is calm, almost kind. You hate how kind it sounds. You tell him you didn't think the fog would reach that far. You tell him it was shallow at first, that it looked harmless. Like smoke from fireplaces, not something that could erase entire streets. He nods. Describe it. You close your eyes. You see the way it moved, slow but deliberate. It carried the smell of wet bark and engine oil, as if the whole town had exhaled at once. Porch lights turned to halos. The road blurred into something that felt alive. The interrogator writes a single word. Describe. Then repeats it aloud. Keep going. The sound of his pen scraping across the paper syncs with the pulse in your ears. You start to talk, about the radio signal fading as you walked, about the distant sound of fireworks or thunder, you still can't tell which, about how the girls laughed at your flashlight when it started flickering. You say you joked that the batteries were cursed. They laughed harder. You laughed too. You remember thinking it was the happiest you'd ever seen them. The interrogator interrupts gently. Did you see anyone else? You shake your head. Just porch lights. He presses. Cars? No. Dogs barking? Anyone calling out? You hesitate. The question opens a door in your mind. A sound you'd buried under the static. A voice? Distant. Drawn out through fog. Not the girls. Not anyone you knew. You shake your head again, too quickly. He notices. He doesn't call it a lie, just lets the silence do the work. The heater hums again. The same pitch as the radio static. You can't tell if it's inside or outside your head anymore. He asks about the flashlight. You tell him it went out near the creek, that you could still see the reflection of the jack-o'-lanterns down the street even through the fog. He repeats your sentence softly, mirroring your tone. You could still see the reflection. The phrase lingers in the air, heavy, uncertain. You realize your hands are clenched in your lap. The static in your ear sharpens. You can almost hear the broadcast again, the same cheerful voice, the same warning. Visibility below 10 feet. Residents are advised to stay indoors. But you hadn't stayed indoors. None of you had. The interrogator flips to a new page. You said you reached Huron Creek at 8:32, he says. The radio log places the last weather report at 8:33. You were still outside when the signal cut out. You nod. What did you hear after that? You open your mouth. Nothing comes out. The static grows louder. The pencil taps once, twice, then stops. Did you hear anything? He asks again, his voice a little lower now. You look up. His eyes reflect the stripes of sunlight through the blinds. For a second, they look like bars. You want to say no. You want to say you remember only the fog. But the truth presses against your teeth. You remember something. A faint sound, too slow to be laughter, too steady to be wind. Like breathing, but wrong. You shake your head anyway. Just the radio. He writes that down. Just the radio, he repeats. You both know it isn't true. The silence that follows feels almost human. You look toward the window, gray sky, faint drizzle. Somewhere beyond it, a crow lands on the fence and shakes the water from its wings. The motion repeats in your mind. Flicker, pause, flicker. Like the light through fog that night, the interrogator finally clicks off the recorder. We'll stop here, he says softly. Next time, we'll start with the bridge. You nod, but your focus stays on the rain tracing lines down the glass. Each drop leaves a streak that looks like handwriting. For a moment, you swear it spells your name. The bridge appears before you even mention it. That's how the mind works. It summons the place before the memory, then forces you to walk through it. You're back in the room again, but the table feels longer today, the light colder. The interrogator doesn't speak right away. He lets the silence uncoil until it hums like the wooden planks over the creek. Let's talk about the bridge, he says. The tape recorder clicks on, the sound precise and final. You stare at your reflection in the metal tabletop. It ripples slightly, distorted by faint scratches. You can almost see the bridge there. The way the boards dipped in the center, the rusted bolts, the rope railing that was more for comfort than safety. You used to cross it all the time, you tell him. It was nothing then, a shortcut between neighborhoods. But that night it wasn't nothing. He asks you to describe who went first. Lydia, you say. She was always first. And Beth. Behind her. I was last. Your voice falters on the last word. He hears it. He notes it. The heater clicks off mid-cycle. The sudden silence fills with the sound of rain. Not real, not now, but remembered. You can hear it hitting the wood, sliding through cracks, tapping the creek below. He leans forward. You said you were 20 steps behind. Did you see them reach the middle? You nod. You think you did. Two shapes, faint in the fog, the red ribbon catching what little light there was. It shimmered for a moment, then swung downward. You thought she'd dropped something. He repeats your phrasing. You thought she'd dropped something. You nod again, slower. What did you do? I called out, you say. They didn't answer. Did you walk onto the bridge? You hesitate. The question stretches like a rope tightening. The truth is, you don't remember stepping forward. You just remember the sound. The boards creaking, not under your feet, but under someone's. The sound of water moving faster beneath. Then quiet. I think I stopped, you say. He mirrors your tone. You think you stopped. I must have. I didn't cross. Why not? You don't answer right away. The air smells faintly of metal, like wet nails or bloodless iron. I don't know, you say finally. Something felt wrong. The fog was thick. I couldn't see the other side. The interrogator writes for a long time. You try to read the page upside down, but his handwriting is too neat, too small. Only one word stands out, hesitation. He closes the notebook halfway and rests his pen across it. You've crossed that bridge hundreds of times, he says softly. Why stop that night? You shake your head. It was different. Different how? It sounded hollow. Hollow? Like it wasn't there anymore. He watches you carefully. But you said you heard the boards creak. I did. So it was there. You open your mouth but can't answer. The contradiction sits between you, heavy as a confession. Outside, the wind groans through the vent. Sounds like the creak again, slow and endless. You realize your hand is tapping the table, 3 beats, pause, 3 beats, the same rhythm you'd heard that night. The interrogator's eyes flicker to your hand. He doesn't stop you. He lets you loop the motion until it starts to sound like footsteps. You said Lydia was in the middle, he says after a while. If you didn't cross, how do you know where she was? You stop tapping. He doesn't look away. How did you see her ribbon if you stayed behind? You try to form an answer, but the words collapse. You remember light, faint, orange, trembling, maybe from the pumpkin lantern she carried. You remember it swaying once, then twice, then dropping out of sight. I saw the glow, you whisper. Then nothing. He leans back, crossing his arms. The gesture feels rehearsed. And you didn't go after them? You shake your head. No. I thought they were playing a trick. He studies you for a long time. Do you believe that now? You almost laugh. The sound that escapes is closer to a breath. I don't know what I believe. The rain in your head has stopped. The static has returned, faint, constant. It fills the room like fog. He switches off the recorder, but the red light lingers. There's something you're not saying, he tells you. Something that happened before the bridge. You look at him, but your mind is already walking backward through the mist. To the sound of the radio, the laughter, the house with the last pumpkin still burning. I told you everything, you say. He smiles, polite, practiced. Not yet. The light flickers overhead. For a moment, the reflection in the table shifts. Not your face this time, but two smaller shapes, standing side by side in the fog. The heater turns on again, filling the silence with a low, steady hum that sounds almost like breathing. You don't look up. You keep your eyes on the bridge that isn't there anymore. When the session begins, the blinds are already drawn. The room feels dimmer than usual, deliberate, you suspect. The interrogator stands by the tape recorder, adjusting its position so that the microphone points directly at your chest. For clarity, he says, though you both know it's for something else. To catch what the words miss. The air smells faintly of mildew and old paper. You can hear rain dripping somewhere in the building, the rhythmic kind that sounds almost mechanical. The heater hums, its pitch aligning perfectly with the tone in your left ear. He starts with no greeting this time. You mention the bridge. But what about afterward? You look at your hands. The memory doesn't come in pictures anymore. It comes in sensations, the cold, the vibration of running water, the way the fog tasted when you breathed. I went down by the creek, you say slowly. There was light. I thought it might be them. What kind of light? Headlights. Maybe. He writes something. Maybe. You remember the way it flickered. Steady for a second, then gone. It made the water in the ditch shimmer like silver foil. You thought it was a car turning toward the old highway, but there was no sound of an engine. Only the dripping, the wind through reeds, and your own shoes slipping in the mud. The interrogator leans back in his chair, crossing one leg over the other. And what did you see when you reached the ditch? You hesitate. The words rearrange themselves before leaving your mouth. Footprints. Yours. No. Smaller. He doesn't respond. The silence stretches. They led toward the trees, you add. But there were only two sets. He looks up. Two. You nod. Not three. His pen stops moving. So you followed them? I wanted to, but the mud was too thick. I slipped. You stop. He waits. I fell. You say finally. I slid down into the ditch. When I stood up, the lights were gone. He studies you for a moment. Gone how? Just gone. You can hear the lie in your own voice. The sound is flat, like a radio signal fading into static. He changes tactics, projection again. If someone else told this story, what would you think happened to the girls? You stare at the wall behind him. The paint is peeling, revealing pale layers underneath. I think they crossed the bridge. I think they got lost in the fog. But you don't believe that. You don't answer. He nods slowly. You said there were two sets of prints. Could one have been yours? You shake your head. Mine went the other way. His eyebrow lifts slightly. The other way? Back toward the road. He writes something down, a single line. You can't see it, but you know the shape of the word, retreat. Outside, thunder murmurs low and long. The sound seems to roll beneath the floorboards. You close your eyes, and the memory surfaces again. The ditch light, the wet grass brushing your knees, the faint outline of footprints vanishing one by one as water filled them. You remember looking up at the bridge. The lantern was still there, hanging from the rope rail. It swayed in the wind, faint and orange, like a heartbeat too far away to save. The interrogator's voice pulls you back. When you turned toward the road, did you see anyone? You think of the shadow by the bridge post, tall, still, separate from the fog. You told yourself it was a tree. No, you say. The heater coughs, rattles, then steadies again. He folds his hands. You're consistent about one thing, he says quietly. You always stop before the bridge. You look at him, because that's where it ends. Or begins. His tone is careful, neither challenge nor comfort. Just an observation placed precisely where you can't ignore it. You glance toward the wall clock. The hands haven't moved since you sat down. For a moment you wonder if the ticking stopped or if time itself simply refuses to follow you here. He notices your glance. You'll need to come back tomorrow, he says. We'll go over the evidence. You want to ask what evidence, but something in his posture tells you not to. He turns off the recorder. The red light fades, but the hum in your ear remains. As you stand, your chair legs scrape across the floor. A small, metallic shriek that makes you flinch. You look down and see a faint smear of mud where your shoe slid backward. You could swear the pattern looks like a footprint, smaller than yours, facing the bridge. The cardboard box is already on the table when you walk in. Brown, water-warped, sealed with tape that's lost its stick. No label, no folder, no chain of custody tag. Just the kind of box you'd find in any garage, buried under a stack of forgotten holidays. The interrogator doesn't greet you. He sits across the table, silent, hands folded. The recorder's red light glows steady. You can hear the faint clicking of the ceiling fan, slow and uneven, like a heartbeat that doesn't trust itself. What's inside? He asks. You tell him you don't know. He tilts his head. But you've seen it before. You glance at the box again. The sight of it stirs something faint. Not a memory exactly, but the feeling of one trying to form. Cardboard soft from rain. A smell of sugar and smoke. Open it, he says. You hesitate. The tape peels easily. Inside are costumes, folded but wrong, crumpled and damp, the colors dulled by time. A ghost sheet with a tear in the center. A red ribbon tangled around a mask. The faint, sweet odor of caramel mixed with something acrid, like burnt fabric. The interrogator leans forward, careful not to touch anything. Do these look familiar? You nod before you mean to. They're from the parade, you say. He watches you. The one before the disappearance? You nod again. Who wore them? You stare at the fabric. The masks are cheap, plastic thin enough to bend under your fingers. One has a smear of black across the left eye. Maybe paint, maybe soot. The other is clean, almost new. Lydia and Beth, you whisper. And this. He lifts the ribbon with a pencil tip. You mentioned one of them wore it. She did, you say. Lydia. Her mother tied it on. The interrogator lays the ribbon flat against the table. Its color looks darker in the light, more brown than red. Where was the box found? You ask. In your shed, he answers. You blink. That's impossible. Is it? I don't even have. You stop. Because you do. Everyone in town has a shed, small and leaning, a place for rakes and ghosts. He slides a photograph across the table. The picture shows your shed door open. The box sits just inside, next to a stack of old newspapers. The edges of the photo are curled, like it's been handled too many times. You don't remember anyone coming to your property. You don't remember leaving the box there. But the smell from inside it, the burnt sugar, has followed you since Halloween night. I didn't put it there, you say. He doesn't contradict you. He just writes something and asks, did you ever go back to the bridge after that night? You shake your head. Not even once? No. Then how did this end up in your shed? You can't answer. The heater clicks on, and for a moment the sound seems to come from inside the box. You picture the costumes shifting, whispering, remembering their shapes. He pushes the photo closer. Look again. Your eyes find the corner of the image, where a shadow stretches across the ground. It's human-shaped, but distorted too long, like someone caught mid-turn. You can't tell if it's you or someone else. The interrogator studies your reaction. You mentioned before that the fog made it hard to tell what was real. Does that happen often? You look up. Now or then? Either. You want to say no, but the truth feels heavier. The static has been louder lately, especially at night. Sometimes it sounds like laughter coming through a wall. Sometimes it sounds like leaves moving where there shouldn't be wind. He nods once, as if you've said something he expected. Objects can carry association, he says. Smell, sound, even memory. The brain attaches meaning to artifacts when words fail. Are you saying I imagined it? I'm saying you might have remembered it incorrectly. You almost laugh, but it comes out as breath. There's nothing incorrect about finding someone's costume in your shed. Unless you put it there, he replies, calm even. The silence that follows feels colder than any fog you've known. You look at the box again. The ribbon has curled slightly, forming the shape of a question mark. The heater hums behind you, low and steady, almost rhythmic. You reach toward the mask without realizing it. The interrogator doesn't stop you. The plastic is cold, colder than it should be. When you turn it over, a faint fingerprint marks the inside. Small, smudged. He sees it too. Lydia's? He asks. You don't answer. Because part of you already knows the truth, the print isn't small enough. You set the mask back in the box, closing the lid carefully, like you're afraid it might wake something. The interrogator writes a final note. Tomorrow, he says, we'll talk about the ribbon. As you stand, the static returns, sharp, electric, immediate. You touch your ear, but it isn't coming from there anymore. It's coming from the box. The ribbon lies in the center of the table now, coiled like a resting vein. The interrogator hasn't spoken yet. He's just watching the way your eyes keep returning to it. It looks different in daylight, duller, less red. The color of something left in the sun too long. Still, when the light catches its edge, there's a shimmer that feels alive. You tell yourself it's only the fluorescent hum, bouncing off the thread. Do you remember tying it? He asks. You shake your head. Her mother did. He writes that down. Describe it. You take a breath. The air smells faintly of paper and faint citrus cleaner. But beneath that, a trace of something sweeter, familiar. The scent of the ribbon itself. It was satin, you say. Smooth. It left marks on her wrist because she wore it too tight. She liked the sound it made when she moved. Like a whisper. He nods. And you said she was wearing it that night. You hesitate. Yes. Then how did it end up in your shed? The question lands softly, but it cuts deep. You look away. I don't know. He waits. He's using silence now, one of his better tools. You've started to recognize the tactics. Mirroring, looping, projection. Silence, though, that's the one that feels like drowning. The heater isn't running today, and the air feels colder for it. You rub your arms without realizing it. Somewhere in the hallway, a phone rings twice and stops. She always said it was lucky. You say, more to yourself than him, that it kept bad things away. He repeats your phrase under his breath. Kept bad things away. He lets the words linger, then asks, from her or from you? You look up sharply. What's that supposed to mean? He doesn't answer. Instead, he opens a thin folder and slides a photograph across the table. It's the bridge, the one you keep seeing in your mind. The photo is grainy, taken from across the creek. In the center of the frame, the rope railing catches the light. Hanging from it is the ribbon, tied in a perfect bow. That was taken 2 days after Halloween, he says quietly. Before the police took the bridge apart. You stare at the picture. The bow is neat, deliberate, not something dropped or lost. Looks tied by hand, he adds. You nod slowly. She must have done it. Or someone else. You feel your pulse in your jaw. Why would I tie it? I didn't say you did. But his voice is too calm. Too neutral. You lean forward. Do you think I? He cuts you off with a raised hand. I think memory is unreliable, he says. Especially under stress. You sink back into the chair. The static in your ear has softened to a low buzz, but it pulses with your heartbeat. He gestures toward the ribbon again. Touch it. You hesitate, then reach out. The fabric feels colder than it should, almost damp. You run your thumb along the edge, and for a moment your vision shifts. The room fades, replaced by fog and the sound of water under wood. You see her, Lydia, turning back toward you from the center of the bridge. The ribbon catches moonlight, glinting like a spark in the mist. She's laughing, but no sound comes out. Then the light flickers, and the sound changes. Not laughter, not words. Just that hum, the one that's followed you ever since. You pull your hand back. What did you see? He asks. You shake your head. Nothing. He studies you. Something happened before the bridge, didn't it? You want to deny it, but the words don't come. Because now, as you stare at the ribbon again, you remember something small. The way Lydia had looked at you when you said you wanted to go home. The half-smile. The faint edge of pity. She said I was scared. You whisper. She said I never finish anything. And were you scared? You close your eyes. I thought it was a game. He leans back. And now I don't know what it was. For the first time, the interrogator looks away, staring at the wall clock. The second hand ticks slow, steady. The sound blends with the faint static, forming a rhythm that feels almost familiar. He closes the folder. We're going to pause here, he says. But before we do, tell me what you think the ribbon means. You look at it one more time. The light from the window hits it just right, making the thread shimmer like water. It means she didn't make it across, you say. The interrogator's expression doesn't change. He clicks off the recorder. The red light dies. As you stand, you notice something you hadn't before. A faint ring of red around your wrist. You rub it, but it doesn't fade. You don't remember how it got there. The town looks smaller when you talk about it out loud. Each street shrinks to a line, each house to a shape. You trace them in the air as you speak. Birch Street, Maple Lane, the long bend toward the churchyard. The interrogator watches, hands clasped loosely, eyes following your invisible map. He says, let's walk through it again. One house at a time. You nod, though your stomach tightens. He sets a tape recorder between you, presses play. A low click, then static, the same frequency as before. The air in the room grows heavier, like it remembers the fog. Start at the first porch, he says. You see it clearly. A white house with chipped steps, the porch light yellow and soft. Lydia knocked. Beth waited beside her, shifting her candy bag from hand to hand. The door opened. An old man, smiling, offering caramel corn. You remember the smell more than his face. You tell him all that. He writes nothing. Next, he says, a greenhouse, plastic skeletons in the yard, a radio playing Sugar by the Archies, muffled and happy. You'd laughed because Beth said the singer sounded like her brother. You remember that now, her voice cutting through the cold. Keep going, he says. A blue house, porch light off. Lydia dared you to ring anyway. You didn't. She did. No one answered. You swallow hard. That's when the fog started. He nods, mirroring your tone. How thick? Like smoke. Color? Gray. But it changed with the streetlights. Orange, then white, then nothing. The heater hums to life behind you. The sound matches your breath. You tell him about the next block. How every house blurred together. How the laughter from other kids faded until it was just you three, your footsteps echoing off wet pavement. You mention the last house before the forest path, the one with the broken porch swing. You can still hear the creak it made, rhythmic, lonely. He leans forward. Did anyone answer that door? You hesitate. I think so. You think. A woman. I don't remember her face. She gave us candy, but she didn't smile. What kind of candy? You blink. Why does that matter? He shrugs. Details matter. You try to recall the color, the wrapper. But all that comes is the rustle of paper and the faint smell of cinnamon. She told us to hurry home, you say. Hurry home, he repeats. Do you remember her exact words? You nod. She said, the fog moves faster after dark. The interrogator's pen stills mid-stroke. And did you listen? You almost laugh. We thought it was part of the act. It was Halloween. He sits back, expression unreadable. And after that, the road ended. The path started. Lydia said we'd be home faster that way. He lets out a slow breath, the kind meant to sound like patience but feels more like pressure. You've told me about the bridge, the ditch, the box. But you keep skipping one moment, the space between the last house and the woods. You look down. Because there's nothing there. He leans closer. There's always something. You close your eyes. The static rises again. When you speak, your voice feels like it's coming from somewhere else. There were footsteps behind us. You whisper. He doesn't move. They stopped when we stopped. Started when we walked. How far behind? I don't know. Close. Did you turn around? No. Why not? You open your eyes. Because I didn't want to see who it was. The interrogator exhales slowly, jotting something down. The pencil sound scratches through the silence like insects in dry leaves. You continue before he asks. We reached the fence before the woods. Lydia went first, then Beth. I was last. I heard one more step behind me, heavier than ours. And when I looked back, the fog moved like water. He writes, then looks up. And then I climbed the fence. He waits. And when I looked over, they were already gone. You don't realize you're shaking until the ribbon mark on your wrist stings. The interrogator closes his notebook. You skipped a house, he says softly. Between the green one and the blue one. You look up, startled. What? There's a property record, he continues. An address between them. 314 Maple. You never mentioned it. You try to picture it, but your memory stops at the edge of the sidewalk. Light, fog, laughter, and then nothing. No porch, no window, no sound. I don't remember that house, you say. He studies you. Maybe you weren't supposed to. The words hang in the air. Outside, a gust of wind hits the window, scattering loose leaves against the glass. The sound is faint but rhythmic, like hands brushing across a door. You find yourself whispering, there was number 314. The interrogator doesn't reply. He just reaches over, stops the tape, and leaves the recorder silent. The hum of the heater becomes the only sound. Pulse is steady, like the breath of something still listening. The photo waits for you when you return. One print, square and grainy, resting on the table like a small, captured lie. The interrogator doesn't say where it came from, only that it was recently developed. The white border is curled, edges smudged by fingerprints. In the picture, the world is a smear of fog and darkness, but in the center, a flare of orange light, the same shade as pumpkin glow. A shoulder, blurred, a streak of fabric, a shadow you can't name. Do you recognize this? He asks. You lean closer. The hum in your ear intensifies, as though the photo itself vibrates. It looks like the bridge, you say. He nods. And this figure here? You squint. The outline is faint, half obscured by fog. Could be anyone. He tilts the picture toward the lamp. You told us no one else was there. I didn't take this. Then who did? You don't answer because even as you say it, something in your chest shifts, the sensation of remembering without wanting to. The angle of the photo is low, near the ground, as if whoever took it had crouched down. The fog curls in patterns you recognize. He sets the photo flat again. It was found in your desk drawer. You shake your head slowly. I don't even own a Polaroid. His eyes stay steady. You used one for art class, didn't you? Senior year. That was years ago. He writes something. The sound of the pen on paper feels louder than it should. You reach for the photo without meaning to. The surface is smooth, but the longer you hold it, the colder it gets. The smell rises faintly. Not ink, not paper. Something chemical, metallic, almost electric. Describe what you see, he says. You trace the lines with your eyes. The railing of the bridge, the faint shimmer on the water, the blur of motion in the background. You start to say fog, but your throat closes, because behind the figures, faint, distorted by light, there's another outline. Taller, unmoving, You hand the photo back. It's nothing, you whisper. He doesn't take it. Tell me about 314 Maple, he says instead. You blink. What? You left it out of your route yesterday. I told you there's number 314. He reaches into the folder and slides another Polaroid beside the first. This one's clearer. A white two-story house. Peeling paint, porch light still burning through fog. The number plate reads 314. Your breath catches. That house isn't real. Then why is it in the picture? You stare at it, trying to find proof of fabrication, a double exposure, a trick of focus, but the image is too ordinary. Real in a way that makes you sick. You whisper, that light was never on. He leans forward. So you've seen it. You open your mouth, then close it again. The static fills the pause for you, whispering its single-note song. The interrogator adjusts his glasses. This photo was taken within a minute of the bridge image. The timestamps match. You look back at the two pictures, the house, the bridge, and realize the fog in both moves in the same direction, as if it's one continuous breath between scenes. He says, someone was documenting your route. You shake your head. That's impossible. Then who took these? You press your hands against your temples. I don't know. The lamp flickers, dimming for half a second before steadying. In that heartbeat of shadow, you think you see the photo's light move, like a reflection shifting in water. The interrogator waits for you to speak, but your throat stays tight. So he changes strategy. Let's try guided recall, he says softly. You're walking the route. You see the house numbers pass by. When you reach 312, what do you feel? Cold, you say. 313? Fog. 314? Your chest tightens. The hum rises into a high whine. Nothing, you whisper. There was nothing there. He lowers his voice. And after, the bridge. He nods once, slowly. So between 314 and the bridge, something disappears. You shake your head. No, everything disappears. He writes again, you can't see what, but the scratch of the pen is rhythmic, hypnotic. Would you like to know what's on the back of the Polaroid? He asks. You hesitate, then nod. He flips it over. A single line of handwriting crosses the back in faint blue ink. They said they'd be home before midnight. Your pulse trips. That's not mine. He studies you. You sure? The letters are neat, but one character catches your eye, the curve of the D, looped too tightly. You've seen that before. You've written it before. The interrogator lets the silence do its work. You reach for the photo again, but he slides it out of reach. We'll keep this here, he says, for reference. He switches off the lamp, leaving only the pale light from the window. The fog outside the glass has thickened, though it's long past Halloween. In the reflection, the Polaroid glows faintly on the table, orange light caught forever in a place that shouldn't exist. You look away, but when you blink, you see afterimages, the house, the bridge, and 3 silhouettes walking into the fog. Only 2 come back. The light in the room has changed again. It's dimmer, more amber than white, like the glow from an old lantern. The interrogator's face is half-shadowed, his outline blurred by the flicker. You realize the effect isn't accidental. Nothing about these sessions ever is. The Polaroids are gone from the table now, replaced by a small, battered lantern, metal-dented, glass fogged with age. He clicks the recorder on, the red light glowing like an eye. You remember this? He asks. You stare at the lantern. The smell of kerosene hits first, faint but sharp enough to pierce through memory. It looks like hers, you say quietly. Lydia's. You nod. She carried one that night. Said it made her feel safe. He leans forward slightly. This one was found near the creek. Your throat tightens. It can't be the same. He doesn't argue. He just gestures toward it. Pick it up. You hesitate, then do. The metal is cool, too cool, colder than the room. Your reflection shimmers across the curved glass, distorted by scratches. Behind it, you can almost see motion, not in the lantern but through it. What do you see? He asks. You shake your head. Nothing clear. Look again. You take a slow breath. The smell deepens, richer now, damp wood, fog, iron. And suddenly, the reflection shifts. You're not in the room anymore. You're back on the bridge. The world around you gray and soundless. The lantern glows from the inside out, light rippling across water that no longer flows. You see the two girls ahead, walking into mist, their shapes faint but certain. And then, for just a second, a third figure standing where you are now, holding another lantern. You blink hard. The vision collapses. You're back at the table. The interrogator's voice cuts through the static that's returned to your ears. You saw something. You don't answer. The words feel stuck in your throat. He writes slowly. Every time we come close to that night, your body reacts. Pulse increases, breathing shallow. What do you think you're remembering? You grip the lantern tighter. You think this is about guilt. He doesn't deny it. You're wrong. You continue. It's about distance. The fog made everything far away. Even when they were right next to me. He studies you. Did you cross the bridge? You shake your head. I told you I didn't. Then why does your reflection change every time you look into the light? You look down at the lantern again. Your reflection trembles across its glass, split into fragments by scratches and soot. The longer you stare, the more it separates. Two versions of you, one sitting here, one standing on the bridge. The one in the glass moves a second later than the real you. Because it's remembering, you whisper. The interrogator tilts his head. Objects don't remember. You look up. Then why does it feel like it knows? He doesn't respond. Instead, he reaches over and turns the wick slightly. The flame grows brighter, trembling. The hum in your ear matches its rhythm. He asks again, softly this time. What happened when the light went out? The room feels smaller, walls bending inward. I heard them scream. You say? But it sounds like someone else speaking. Or maybe I dreamed it. I don't know anymore. Did you run toward the sound? I froze. He repeats your words slowly, precisely. You froze. You nod. I thought if I stayed still, the fog would pass. But it didn't. You look at him. No. The flame flickers. For a moment, the light bends and catches something in the air. Dust or memory, impossible to tell. You can see the bridge reflected on the tabletop again. Faint, almost invisible. You whisper, it's the same light. He closes his notebook carefully. We're nearly done, he says. 2 more sessions. You stare at the lantern, now dimming. The flame gutters, flashes once. And for an instant, your reflection isn't alone. There are 3 figures behind you, faint as smoke. When the light dies completely, the room doesn't go dark. It turns silver, like fog remembering itself. The interrogator speaks into the stillness. When we begin again, I want you to tell me what you saw after the bridge. You nod without meaning to, but inside your chest, something answers that isn't a voice. Something that hums. The room feels different today. The air carries the chill of open water. There's no heater running, no static, no hum. Only the faint sound of a dripping pipe somewhere down the hall, each drop measured, deliberate. The interrogator sits closer this time. The distance between you has shrunk to a span of paper. No lantern, no box, no Polaroid. Only a thin folder labeled Huron Creek Revisit in fading ink. He begins quietly, almost gently. You said you never went back. I think you did. You want to deny it. You open your mouth to say no. But the sound that escapes is the slow inhale of memory, not speech. I don't remember, you whisper. He flips open the folder. Inside, a map of the creek, drawn in pencil, annotated in red. Your handwriting. You don't need to be told it's yours. The loops, the hesitation marks, the way the letters lean like reeds in wind. He slides it toward you. This was found in your desk drawer with the Polaroid. Your stomach knots. The map shows the forest trail, the bridge, the ditch light, even the hollow trick-or-treat route. But one thing is new. A circle, drawn just off the path, marked return point. You trace it with your fingertip. The graphite comes off on your skin. I don't remember drawing this. Try, he says. You close your eyes. The sound of dripping merges with wind, and for a moment you're standing at the edge of the creek again. The fog has lifted, but everything feels wrong in daylight. Too visible, too bare. The water runs low, revealing stones like vertebrae. The bridge is gone, dismantled, only its skeleton of posts remaining. You kneel, touch the mud. It's cold. When you lift your hand, your palm bears the imprint of something small and circular. A button, maybe, or an eye. I went back. You admit, voice barely audible. When? The next morning. Before sunrise. He nods slowly, looping your phrasing. Before sunrise. I thought maybe they were hiding. Maybe it was a prank. I called their names, but it was quiet. He waits. Then I saw the light. You say. What light? Reflection on the water. Orange, like the lantern, but weaker. And I stepped closer. There was a ribbon caught on a branch. The same ribbon. The one from your shed. You nod. It was wet, but the knot was tight. Too tight for the current to tie it. Did you take it? You pause. Yes. Why? You look at him. Because I didn't want anyone to think I'd left it there. The words land heavier than you expect. He writes nothing this time. He just watches, as if waiting for something to break. What else did you see? He asks. You take a slow breath. Footprints, maybe, but they weren't leading away. They stopped in the middle of the creek, like whoever made them forgot which way to go. The dripping in the hall stops. The silence grows large. He leans closer. What did you do then? You stare at your hands. The red mark around your wrist has darkened. A thin outline like a boundary drawn under skin. I followed the reflection, you say. His eyes narrow. Into the water? Yes. The memory surfaces all at once. The shock of cold, the weight of mud pulling you down, the faint glow fading beneath the ripples. You remember reaching for it, thinking it was light, only to find glass, smooth, rounded, the lens of a camera. There was something under the creek bed. You whisper. A camera. He straightens slightly. You're certain? Yes, but when I pulled it up, it slipped. The current took it. Film inside. I think so. He exhales. That would explain the Polaroids. You look up sharply. Then someone found it. Maybe, he says. Maybe not. The sound of the drip resumes. Slower. Heavier. You realize it's raining again. Outside the window, the trees bend in gray wind. He closes the folder carefully. Why didn't you tell anyone you went back? You answer before thinking. Because I already knew what they'd say. What's that? That I should have crossed the bridge. He nods once, the kind of nod that feels like a verdict. You press your palms flat on the table. The air feels wet, dense. I keep seeing it, you say. The reflection. Every time I close my eyes. The reflection of what? You swallow. Of me. But not me from now, me from then. Still standing on the bridge. The interrogator leans back slowly. And what is she doing? You pause, the answer forming like condensation on glass. She's waiting for the light to go out. For the first time, he looks away. The rain outside becomes a steady hiss, the same pitch as the creek. The clock on the wall ticks once, then stops completely. He says, almost to himself, sometimes the mind revisits the place it left unfinished. You don't respond. You're still staring at the map. The circle marked return point seems to shimmer slightly, as if water had touched the page. The ink bleeds outward, forming a new word beneath it. Not written, but revealed, home. The tape begins without him saying anything, just static, soft as fog. Then his voice, steady, lower than usual. This will be the final session. You nod. You're not sure when you sat down. The chair feels unfamiliar, or maybe your body does. The window behind him glows with that pale gray light that never becomes morning. Somewhere outside, a truck passes, its tires whispering over wet asphalt. He slides a small envelope toward you. Inside are the Polaroids, the ribbon, and a single folded sheet of paper. The paper is thin enough that you can see a faint outline of handwriting beneath. Read it, he says. You unfold it carefully. The ink is faded, written in a looping, cautious hand, yours. I went back. I thought I heard them laughing. I saw my own light in the water. It wasn't reflection. It was waiting for me. Your stomach turns. I didn't write this. He doesn't move. It was found in your desk drawer, inside the map. You run your finger across the paper. The graphite smudges faintly, damp at the edges, as if it had been held by someone still wet from rain. I don't remember writing it, you whisper. You don't have to, he says. Memory fills itself when language fails. Sometimes it writes to the part that doesn't want to be found. He lets the silence linger until it's almost unbearable. Then, what happened after you saw the reflection? You stare at the page. The hum in your ear has turned to a low, pulsing tone. I followed it, you say. Where did it lead? You close your eyes. Under the creek. It wasn't deep, but the current felt stronger than it should have been. I thought I was walking, but my feet weren't touching bottom anymore. He nods slowly. And when you surfaced? You shake your head. I don't think I did. The static grows louder, filling the room. You press your hands to your ears, but it's inside, not outside. The sound vibrates behind your eyes, bright and thin. He speaks calmly through it. You did come back. You walked home. The neighbor saw you at dawn. You look at him. Then why does it feel like I never left? He doesn't answer. Instead, he opens the notebook and reads from the first page. Your earliest session, your own words. I thought the woods were silent, but maybe it was me who stopped making sound. He closes the notebook. You've been describing the same moment in different shapes, he says. The bridge, the lantern, the water. They're all the same threshold. You whisper. Between what and what? He looks at you evenly. Between knowing and admitting. You lean forward. Admitting what? That you crossed. The hum spikes. Not noise now, but something almost like breathing. You shake your head, but the memory unfolds anyway. The fog swallowing your legs, the boards slick beneath your shoes, the ribbon slipping from Lydia's wrist. You had reached for her, but your hand found only air. The interrogator watches as your eyes unfocus. Say it, he says softly. Say what happened. You whisper, I crossed. And then, you take a breath. The fog, the water, the light, all of it rushes back. The bridge gave way. I fell. I heard them call my name. But, you stop. The word you're looking for won't come. But, they were already gone. The sound in your ear fades to a low hum again. You look up at him, waiting for judgment. But his face is unreadable. He turns off the recorder. The red light dies. Outside, the rain has stopped. The world sounds hollow in its quiet. He gathers the objects, the ribbon, the lantern, the Polaroids, and places them back in the envelope. Then he stands, walks to the window, and opens the blinds. Fog presses against the glass like a held breath. You said you never left Huron Creek, he murmurs. Maybe you were right. You stare at the fog. It moves like water, slow and deliberate. In it, for just a heartbeat, you see shapes, two small figures, one with a lantern, one holding your hand. Then the light outside shifts and they dissolve. He turns back to you. We'll conclude here. You nod, but you don't rise. You can't. The static has settled into stillness, a low vibration deep inside your chest. He pauses at the door. You know, he says quietly, sometimes disappearance isn't the event. It's the echo that follows. The door closes. The room exhales. You sit alone with the envelope. For a long time, nothing moves. Then, slowly, the fog outside brightens to the color of morning. On the table, a single droplet slides down the Polaroid's glossy surface, as if something beneath the image has begun to thaw. You reach for it, but stop halfway, hand trembling in midair, because in the reflection of that small square of light, you see a bridge unbroken and three silhouettes walking across it. One turning back to look, just once. Then they vanish into the white. The tape ends, but the static never does. You hear it now in everything. The wind through the birch trees, the low buzz of power lines, the hollow sound of your own breath against the window. People still talk about that Halloween. The one where two girls vanished and a third came home soaked and silent. They say the fog was the thickest in decades, that it swallowed sound and light like something hungry. But no one remembers how long it stayed after. Sometimes, when the mornings are cold enough, the fog returns to Huron Creek. It hangs just above the waterline, motionless. If you stand on the new bridge, the one built years later, and look down, you can see a faint shimmer, as if something glows beneath the surface. Locals say it's nothing, just sunlight breaking through current. But if you wait long enough, and the air goes still, you might hear the faint echo of laughter under the hum. Two voices, then a third, overlapping just out of sync. The sound lasts only a moment before the fog folds it back in. You tell yourself it's the wind, or memory, or the creek remembering what it was made to forget. But deep down, you know better. Because when you lean close enough to the water, the reflection doesn't show your face anymore. It shows the bridge. And it's always empty.